You've probably noticed something about how you show up in the world if you're listening to this. You can get things done, you can be productive, you can achieve, you can deliver, you can perform, and you can just still feel strangely unfulfilled. You've tried discipline, willpower, and even cutting out distractions, but nothing sticks. And here's a truth that many of us just refuse to face because it sounds too reductive. It sounds too biological, too deterministic. You are not weak. You are not undisciplined. All it is your reward system has been hijacked by patterns that feel instinctive, but are actually learned. Yeah, you're not broken. You're not overstimulated. This isn't pop psychology. It's a behavioural response driven by the real mechanisms in your brain's reward circuitry, but one that's been widely misunderstood. I'm Sam, and welcome back to Master Your Mindset, Master Your Life. This podcast is a short, actionable podcast to help you get from stuck to unstoppable, from surviving to thriving. If you get something from this, please let me know. What are your biggest takeaways? And if you know someone who would benefit from this, please share it with them. So before I go any further, let's just clear the noise. The phrase dopamine detox is popular. It's catchy. It sounds like a reset button. But the science is clear. You cannot detox from dopamine as if it's a toxin. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter. It's a signaling molecule. What it does is it plays a role in motivation, reward, prediction. In learning, memory, and attention. It's not something that can be purged or flushed out of your system. So, contrary to common belief, dopamine is not actually the brain's pleasure chemical, and it does not directly produce enjoyment. It's actually more accurately described as in neuroscience as the wanting chemical, or the motivation signal. It's that desire before you get the reward. It's that thing that gives you the drive that pushes you towards the reward. Your brain doesn't crave dopamine, it craves reward, prediction, and novelty. And this is where dopamine helps encode and reinforce that behavior. And the problem, it isn't the dopamine itself. The problem is how your reward system has been conditioned. Because modern life has trained your brain to avoid effort in every way possible. You want food, you can get it delivered. You can get DoorDash, Uber Eats. You can get Amazon instant delivery. You can get anything. No effort required. You want to get your answers, go to ChatGPT. Use the internet. You can find it all straight away. You've got your phone at the end of your hand most of the day. Your nervous system has been evolved for environments where, or your nervous system originally evolved for environments where rewards were sparse, where food, shelter, social connections, reproduction. But today rewards are engineered to be instant, abundant, and variable. And this is what I'm talking about. Amazon, DoorDash, all these things. Your feeds, pings, shares, video loops, sugar, your binge entertainment, your online shopping, all of this. Everything is instant. And the problem is that the problem isn't that dopamine is just flooding your brain like a toxin. The problem is repeated, frequent activation of that reward-seeking behavior. That constant activation of that reward-seeking behavior, that trains your brain to expect novelty and immediacy. And then over time, what once was enjoyable, things like a deep conversation, that sustained work, that deep focus, that creative effort, all of those things, it just starts to feel slow or just boring by comparison. And that's just because your brain has now shifted, and its expectation of stimulation has been recalibrated towards that quick hit rather than that long sustained engagement. That's why people are looking for these easy hacks to lose weight, to make money, to do all these things that they think will bring them a better life. They don't want to put in the hard work. They don't want to put in the time. They don't want to put in the effort. They want it now. And this is not a willpower failure. This is behavioral conditioning loop that you've accepted. And it has reshaped how you respond to effort and reward. And this is why the dopamine detox trend exists. So this is where we get impractical. So the phrase dopamine detox is a misnomer. You cannot detox dopamine. Yeah, it's produced constantly and used in your vital brain functions. But what people are actually responding to and what can produce a real benefits is a structured withdrawal from those high frequency stimulation patterns, the ones that hijack your reward system and condition avoidance of effort. Yeah, that's why people who take extended breaks from social media, the constant pings, the endless feeds, or compulsive novelty, they often report things like better focus, deeper engagement with slow or just meaning-rich tasks. They have a greater tolerance for effort and the friction, and they've improved their mood and clarity. And the reason is, it's not because the dopamine levels have changed, but the reward salience has shifted back towards a baseline level. So a dopamine detox doesn't get rid of dopamine. What it does is it brings you back to a baseline level where you start to experience things how they should be experienced, where you're not just constantly surrounded by these pings, these feeds, these constant being in contact. And the real benefit, it's behavioral, it's not biochemical. And then this is where the identity collision happens, because right now, many capable, ambitious, and quietly stuck people are living with a subtle pattern. And you're chasing these quick hits, not because you want pleasure, not because you want to avoid discomfort, because boredom feels unbearable. Stillness just feels like a punishment. Slow work, it feels like a failure. And that's not weakness, that's conditioning. You've trained your brain to avoid friction and it's now searching for ease. But ease is not engagement and it doesn't build that self-trust that you're looking for. And things like this behavioral pattern will look like you're constantly checking your phone. Whenever you've got downtime, you're just mindlessly scrolling. Yeah, you're reaching for something to stimulate you at the slightest lull in your day. Feeling restless when you're not occupied, losing momentum when your effort is sustained. These are not random behaviors. They're reward response loops that you've reinforced. And that's why traditional discipline, it doesn't work. Because you're still operating within the conditioned system that created the problem. And so if you keep relating to this stimulation in the same way, you'll get better at being busy, but you'll actually be worse at being focused. You'll refine those productivity hacks, but everything will lose depth. You'll end up chasing novelty, but you'll starve your self-trust. And these are not motivational cliches. They're real trade-offs that will happen in your life, because your attention will become brittle, your tolerance for discomfort collapses, your motivation, it feels inconsistent, and your capacity for long-term projects and focus, it shrinks. Because the system you're feeding actually rewards avoidance rather than engagement. And this is where benefits and steps live, but as identity commitment thresholds. It's not convenience. Step 1 is name the behavioral loops that dominate your day. Not I'll be better, not I should, but specifically what actions do you do reflexively to avoid effort. Step 2 is choose a 48-hour window, if possible, where you can reduce or remove at least 3 high-frequency stimuli that condition quick reward responses. These could be things like no social media for 48 hours, no Netflix or streaming entertainment, no compulsive feed checking, no impulse snacking, and nothing like that. You're not detoxing the neurochemical, you're just breaking the stimulus response habit. And this is discomfort you have to feel, not avoid. And then so step 3 is ask yourself, what do you gain when you avoid discomfort? What do you lose when you choose effort? This is not a tip. This is a fork. This is where you stop where your current standard lives. And if you stop at step 1, you prefer being responsive. If you stop at step 2, you prefer to be controlled by the patterns. But if you push through to step 3, you choose self-leadership over escape. So here are the outcomes some of the people who I've coached have noticed after intentional withdrawal, not because the dopamine is reset, but because the conditioned response weakens and their brains reward anticipation just adapted to deeper engagement. They could tolerate being bored with less anxiety, and they could sustain more focus without short-circuiting to just distractions. They found that actually they rediscovered satisfaction in meaningful tasks, and they ended up weakening compulsive reward-seeking loops. This wasn't just after the first one. They noticed some change, but after this was done regularly over time, these were some of the biggest things they noticed, including when they actually were present, they were fully present. They had better conversations. It improved relationships. It meant that they were being more productive and better at work. So these are the kind of behavioral shifts you can actually see when you're making these changes. You're not here to tweak your habits. You're here to actually reclaim your capacity to choose discomfort over avoidance. Engagement over distraction. That is self-leadership. And when you stop believing that there's something wrong or that you're broken, and you start seeing your patterns for what they're trained to do, your attention, your agency, and your life, it can all align. You're not broken. Your reward system was conditioned. So now it's time to choose that alignment over your avoidance and see what difference it makes in your life. If you got something from this episode, if you had some recognition that your habits aren't lack of willpower, they're conditioning that you've never confronted, let me know what your biggest takeaways were in the Master Your Mindset, Master Your Life community on Facebook, or drop me a DM at just.live.coaching. If you stay passive, just listen to this and move on. That recognition can become resentment and just drift. If you know someone who would benefit from hearing this, who does this, please share it with them. And for you guys out there, if you're looking for a community where you can be held accountable, when you can be supported, and where you can be challenged, drop me a DM or join the Motivated Man Facebook community. Thank you very much. My aim is just to put as much positivity out as possible and help as many people get from living a life where they're just drifting to taking control and waking up every day energized, empowered and enthusiastic, ready to take on the day. When you realize that you can make these changes, when you master your mindset, you master your life.